G'day gang, it's your old pal Uncle Ghastly here with another Gummy Voice Show. So this is going to be the PTSD episode where I talk about my PTSD, and it's not going to be fun. But I also went and got one of these. This is a Behringer RD6, which is kind of the companion piece to the TD3, which is, they're both based on vintage rolled-in gear, which I told you about in the episode where I unboxed the TD3. I will not be doing an unboxing of this. I've already taken it out of the box and played with it, so I'm just going to do stuff with it. I don't know if I'm going to be making a whole song today, but like always, I'll put a time thing in the thingamadoob, whatchamacallit, no, not the comments, description. That's the word I'm looking for. The description to fast forward to the part where I just goof around with my synthesizers. Now on this show I talk about many things, and one of the things I talk about, what was the inspiration of this show is I started using marijuana medicinally to treat my OCD, and it has also worked in treating my PTSD. And my PTSD and my OCD are somewhat related. They're comorbid with each other. So I'm going to today tell you how marijuana has helped me with my PTSD. And as a result, it's not going to be a very comfortable babble. So a lot of you might want to just skip ahead to the part where I goof around on the synthesizers. And in particular, if you have obsessive compulsive disorder and you've been watching this show to get my take on my experience as a person with OCD, and you are also one of the people with OCD who find you pick up other people's compulsions, right? Then please do not watch this episode. Maybe run it past your therapist first, have them watch it, have them see what they think, and then if they say, yeah, I think you're in a place where you can watch this, I think you're in a place where you no longer struggle with acquiring compulsions, then come back and watch it later. And for now, why don't you just skip ahead to the fun part of this show. And boy, if you're a person who is looking for a review or a tutorial on the Behringer RD6, you've come to the wrong place, buddy. Because you're going to get into, there's going to be a bit of a ride before we get to to playing with this instrument. And I don't do tutorials, and I don't really even do reviews. I'm just messing with this thing. And this is the first day I've had it out of the box. And the reason why I haven't had it out of the box is the last 2 weeks have been very rough for me. I've been struggling with my PTSD. I had an event that happened that triggered my PTSD, and I've just been, sort of riding that PTSD wave. And if you have PTSD, I don't even have to tell you what that is. You know what that is. You know what that feeling is like. And that's one of the things. There's a lot of, when you talk about things that trigger your PTSD, just like people use the phrase OCD when they're not OCD, you know, oh, I'm so OCD, my bookshelf has to be a certain way, or I'm just not right. Or I'm just obsessed with Star Trek, you know, and stuff like that. The trigger has been so badly dealt with on the internet. People use it as an insult, and people use it to describe things that gross them out. Being triggered is not being grossed out by something, even if it's really disgusting and makes you recoil. That's just being grossed out. It's a human thing, and we all get grossed out, and we get grossed out by different things, and that's not being triggered. And or something that offends you, right? Oh, that makes me angry and offends me. You've triggered me, and no, it's not that either. That's just being angry about something. That's something we all do. What a trigger is with PTSD is it's something that takes you away from where you are right now in this space and time, and it puts you into another space and time mentally where things were really bad, and it's a weird thing too. We all have traumas in our life. If I was to think about what was my first traumatic event that I can remember, and it's a weird thing with memory, right? The first traumatic event, super traumatic event I can remember was when I was 3 or 4, and it was after a barbecue. And there were no propane barbecues back then, at least none that I'd ever seen. It was just the old-fashioned charcoal barbecue. This would have been in the 60s. And when I was a little kid, I used to like, after the barbecue, there was this pit that my dad would dump all the charcoal in, right? And the charcoal sits there for a few days after being burnt. It just becomes this very fragile, looks like a stone, right? It's gray and it's super fragile, and you can crush it in your hand. And so when I was a little kid, I used to, day after a barbecue, go to that pit where all the charcoals were, and I'm Superman, and crush these charcoals, and they'd pulverize themselves into a little explosion of powder. Well, guess what my first traumatic event was? It was maybe an hour after a barbecue, and there's those little gray things that you can crush like Superman, because the charcoal were gray because they were still burning inside, though. They were still hot as hell. And little Ghastly grabbed one of those and went to crush it in his hand, and then realized I have made a gross miscalculation here. And I dropped it and screamed. And that was, my whole palm of my hand was blistered, and it had to all be wrapped up in a bandage and stuff like that. And I learned an important lesson about the charcoal pit is wait till the next day before you're Superman crushing those. But it didn't give me PTSD. It didn't, nothing really triggers me to go back to that moment when I had my hand wrapped around a burning charcoal briquette. But it was a horrible traumatic experience to go through, right? It was a terrible, terrible thing at the time, and until my hand healed, I was in quite a bit of pain. But I have no PTSD over that trauma. The first thing, and here's the other thing with PTSD, people tend to think it's one thing, right? You have one horrible, horrible experience, and that's what causes your your PTSD, but it's not one thing. It's a bunch of things, and the ways in which they connect that causes the trauma. And so the very first PTSD event in my life, the first one, I can talk about. I can talk about that fully and soberly, and you know, that event itself is no longer the trauma it was. But that event of trauma is connected to every other bit of PTSD that I suffer. They're all interlinked. And some of the events that have happened to me that have given me PTSD are very horrible. And I can't talk about those ones. Even to my therapist, I've only been able to... They know it's an event that happened, they know the broad terms of what happened to it, but I have never told them, you know, the big parts about it that really get you, right? And I don't know if the big ones I'll ever be able to talk about. And but I understand the way the trauma affects me. And so the first PTSD event in my life, the one that a lot of things would take me back to. Remember this? It was when I was about 8. And if you're a friend or family, maybe you don't want to watch this one, you know, or skip ahead to the thing, because I know it's very hard to hear about people you care about suffering. Especially if they suffered in your presence and you didn't realize it at the time, what they were suffering. And you might feel, oh, why didn't I see this? Why didn't I see this? Well, you didn't see it because I didn't want you to see it. And, you know, I mean, there's a reason I'm a very competent actor. Is because I can make the audience see what I want them to see. And so like last week when I did that Walter Koenig story, right? That was a bullshit story. And a bullshit story is, it's not like lying where you're trying to present falsehood for your own personal gain. A bullshit story is for entertainment, right? Bullshit stories, I used to do them all the time on BBS's back. BBS's were like the proto internet. And there's different types of bullshit stories. Some people like to tell bullshit stories where they're straight-faced all the way through. And then at the end they hit you with the twist right at the end, and it's oh you. And I guess a modern version of that would be that green text thing with my girlfriend is Prego, right? If you've seen that copy pasta or not. If you haven't, I won't spoil it for you. It's a cute little copy pasta. It's an example of a bullshit story where you're keeping them going right to the end, and then you flip the expectations right at the end. And then there's the other bullshit stories, that the ones I like to tell, where it's like grounded in reality, and then as it goes, it's like the story starts going off the rails and it becomes more and more ridiculous. On this show, if I tell you a bullshit story, I will let you know it's a bullshit story. Other places, I'm going to let you figure that out for yourself if I'm telling a bullshit story. But because on this channel, I do talk about I'll talk about silly things like that, but also talk about very serious things like PTSD and my mental health and, surviving that. If I tell you a bullshit story on this channel, I will give you the nod and the wink at the end like I did with the Walter Koenig story. So you know that was a bullshit story. Yeah, although I'm certain 100% of you at some point in that bullshit story figured out it's a bullshit story, right? Because it got pretty, I'm certain by the time Walter and I were in Mexico, I'm sure all of you were, yeah, this is a bullshit story. Okay, where are you going with it? So yeah, if I tell you a bullshit story, I will let you know. This episode is going to be a little harder to talk about, and it'll probably be hard to hear. And it's not a bullshit story, sadly. So, with that said, what was my first post-traumatic stress disorder incident? What was the first traumatic event that happened to me that gave me ongoing trauma? It wasn't just an awful thing that made me feel bad for a week or two or a month or a year even. It was something that I go back to that moment anytime something triggers a memory of it, right? I burn my hand. I might think of that time when I was a kid and did that stupid thing and then go, oh, yeah. But it doesn't really send me back there in a traumatic way. But some things do send me back. And this is my first incident of traumatic stress disorder. This is the first one I go back to. And so when I was 8 years old, I wanted to learn to swim. And my mom got me swimming lessons. And I was so happy. I was so happy and excited to learn how to swim, right? Wanted to know how to swim so that when I go to the beach, go to the cottage, I can actually swim and not just paddle around. And so I took swimming lessons. And then at the end of the course, we were all sitting at the side of the pool. And the instructor was telling us who passed and who failed, right? It wasn't something, there'll be a list on the board or stuff, or we'll tell you privately. It was, we're all gathered there. And she was telling us who passed and who failed. And I was not in the pass group. My body fat percentage was probably less than 2%. I was a skinny kid. I failed my first 2 Army medicals because I was underweight for my height. I think I might have told you the story about that. But so I could not float on my back to save my life. And I could not tread water. I would just go right to the bottom. Unless I started swimming, right? So I could not tread water, and I could not float on my back. 2 things I have no problem with now because I'm an old man and I'm getting kind of chubby, aren't I? And but back when I was 8 years old, I was just like skinny. And so I failed. And I failed in front of the rest of my class, right? Instructor told me I had failed, and I had never failed at anything before that. I had never once failed. No, I had things that didn't work out, but I always got it eventually. I would always be able to figure it out. And I did excellent in school. And this was the first time I had failed something. And just the weight of that, bore on me so heavy. And I just felt this, was so excited to take these lessons, and I was so glad my mom had got me these lessons, and they must cost like, I don't know what, $100 maybe? I'm a kid, I don't know. And my mom paid money for me to take these lessons, and this is, you failed. You failed. And this is the weird part with OCD, is you can have a thought like that, like in a second. When an obsessive thought pops into your head, it's like a bullet. It's like this information bullet. You get a feeling. It's a feeling you have, and that feeling conveys more information than I even told you so far about that feeling of failure I had. That it communicates it really fast and really strong. And it's so unwanted in your head. And then you perform compulsions to get rid of that bad behavior, that bad thought. And so I had that feeling of horrible failure, and the compulsion, the idea that came into my 8-year-old head to erase that feeling of failure was to kill myself. And so I got up and I just walked to the pool and I jumped in, and the plan was I will sink to the bottom and drown, because that's what failures deserve. And so then I jumped in the shallow end of the pool, and I remember as my ass hit the bottom of the pool, that feeling of failure just bam again. Because I failed to kill myself, right? What a stupid, even as an 8-year-old, I know I can stand up in the shallow end and the water will be like up to here, right? So how did I think I was going to possibly be able to kill myself in the shallow end of the pool, you idiot? You should have gone to the deep end, jumped in there. Well, while this thought is firing itself like a bullet into my head, I see the water splash and the teacher comes in, right? She's coming in to pick me up off the bottom of the pool that I'm sitting on. And then I realized, geez Louise, you just tried to kill yourself in front of your entire class. And so I shot up out of the pool, and I go, I can't have anybody knowing I tried to kill myself. And I shot out of the pool, and I made some sort of joke about it, right? Passed it off as, ha 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 ha, I'm jumping in I made you all look kind of thing. And and I looked to the bleachers, it was an outdoor pool, and I had these bleachers at the side the parents used to sit in. And I saw my mother sitting there looking incredibly horrified. And then boom, that bullet of failure again. Like, look at what you have done. And so that was the first instance of PTSD. Things can put me back into that state where I feel like such a failure that the only solution to that is to kill yourself. And that compulsion was one I nurtured over my entire life, in ways that I could keep it hidden, right? Things that would not, so that if I was ever successful, I always had an out so that people wouldn't know, right? Because what do you hear about suicide, right? You hear it's losers who commit suicide, and it's cowards who commit suicide, and so I couldn't, it's failures that commit suicide, not winners. And so yeah, incidents of failure are something that fires that bullet right in my head. Especially, and it's weird too, because it's not all failures. Like, I mean, you can't learn anything without failure. I failed at music a lot, right? Learning new styles, and you get the beat wrong and stuff like that. That last Gummy Voice Show, I fucked up the thing hitting getting the timing right, because the gummy was kind of messing me up, and that's a failure. But it's one you brought. It doesn't even register really as a failure, does it? But then you have some things in your life where it's a failure, right? It's got to be a failure on my part somehow. And when that failure bullet I want a real one to go in there right after it, so I don't have to have that feeling. And planning suicide became my compulsion to deal with that. And planning suicides that would look like an accident were my compulsion to do that. A little bit too much booze and a bit too much of this medication, and I accidentally doubled up on my prescription, or whatever, right? That's an accident. And then that's so that's where I go to when I have a traumatic event happen. That's always where I go to. That back to when, like I was 8 and did that stupid thing. And so there are some traumatic events in my life that weren't even failure, right? They weren't even a failing on my part. I had no part in it. I had no control over it. I was just there when it all happened. And the problem is when you develop this fear of failure, and it creates a loathing in you, a self-loathing. And once you get on that cycle of hating yourself, it's really easy to turn any horrible event into your fault. And I have apophenia too, so I draw connections very easily between things that are unconnected. Fortunately, in my life, I've channeled my apophenia into creativity. Stories and fiction and fantasy and music. And I showed you, I built an apophenia machine on one of the back episodes. You can go watch that. And we turned apophenia into music. And but when you're in this cycle of self-hate, and you have apophenia, and then you have a very traumatic event, an accident of sorts, that happens to you, and you can I blame myself for it, right? Something this terrible could not have happened unless I'm somehow responsible. And you'll go searching for dots to connect that make you responsible for it. And then when your failure is responsible for that much suffering, and you have that compulsion, it gets bad. So that is what I've been dealing with PTSD. And sometimes you'll have something kind of minor in your life happen that maybe, no traumatic event for anyone else, and not even really a traumatic event for you. Like, let's say you're driving through a parking lot and somebody backs out and hits your fender because they didn't see you, right? And it's when it happens, but it doesn't really, there's nothing about that. Oh yeah, fender bender, that's a human thing, happens. The longer you drive, the more likely it's going to happen to you someday. And I'm losing track of my thought. I'm kind of surprised I got through this much of it. I didn't think I'd be able to get through this video at all. Like I said, when I started this Gummy Voice Show, it was right after I had a very big breakthrough with my PTSD and my OCD as a result of using marijuana to treat it. And so what was I saying? Yeah, so that's where my OCD comes, my PTSD comes from, and I did not. I think we can all agree, I did not deal with it healthy at all. And now I do. Now I do. And using marijuana has helped me deal with that, because some of these traumas have been so horrible that I flee from just the very thought of it, of being back there again. And that non-gummy voice that I talked about before would always be there quick to put me down, and I would back out. I would tap out right away, right? Okay, you're right, it's my fault. I'm a horrible person. I'd tap out, right? I don't want to be here, I don't want to hear this. You're right. You're right. And once I started using marijuana, the voice inside my head was being replaced by a kinder, a gentler voice. Not permissive, wasn't telling me to do whatever I want and I'm always right and I'm always great and all this sort of stuff. Just a much more objective voice began to replace it, because that non-gummy voice that I grew up with in my head was not objective. It started from the conclusion, this is your fault, and worked its way backwards, using my mental disorder to do it by connecting the dots backwards. The conclusion was foregone. I am a failure. I am the worst person on this planet. I am a terrible, horrible person. And now let's go backwards and connect the dots that get us there. And when that voice in my head started being replaced, I began to challenge those assumptions and examine my trauma. And it's with some of them, and you blame yourself because you have survivor's guilt. And with some of them, there are no physical laws that exist in this universe that could have made me responsible for that horrible thing. And that was something I could not bring myself to accept before, because I would always tap out, right? As soon as I went to that place in my life, I would tap out, because yes, I'm a failure. Yes, that is my fault. And when I was finally able to get a kinder voice inside my head, I was able to confront my PTSD and confront that obsessive thought that pops into my head of failure, that failure bullet that just, ooh. I was able to finally confront that. And that's when I began to truly heal. That's when I stopped being performative with my therapy and started actually healing myself. And that's a good place to be. So, like I said before, I still get anxiety attacks. I can be on marijuana and get an anxiety attack. I still get panic attacks. I still have OCD. Obsessive thoughts are still plaguing me. I still perform some compulsions, although I'm trying to cut them out, and I have cut out harmful compulsions. And I'm doing pretty good now, but just like I am still OCD, still anxiety attacks, still panic attacks, PTSD is going to kick my ass every now and then. Every now and then, an event will happen in my life, and it will take me right back with such clear detail to a very, very bad place that I have been. But what changes now when that happens, I will just remind myself, this sucks. This sucks that you are in this place. You're going to experience a lot of things physically that are going to be very uncomfortable for a while, but like every other time you've been through this, you'll get through this one again, and it's just gonna suck for a bit, but that's okay. You got this. And it does, it sucks when you have something that triggers your PTSD. My hands feel terrible right now because one of the things that happens when the adrenaline starts pumping in the fight or flight is your body pulls away the blood supply from your extremities, and it's got your muscles get priority even over your internal organs, which you need to survive. It's right now the fight or flight muscles are the only thing that matters, right? You are in danger, and PTSD puts you into a place of existential danger. You feel your life is in jeopardy, and you're scared, and so the adrenaline is going, and stuff like that, and yeah, so that gets rid of the my fingers get numb when that happens, and for a prolonged period of time, then I get this weird rash on the palm of my hands and between my fingers, and yeah, it's not very fun. It's an unpleasant sensation. My feet also, the same thing happens to my feet when it's going. My stomach will be a mess, and it will feel sometimes like I haven't eaten in a million years and I'm starving, and then it'll suddenly feel like I have to throw up immediately. And that's because, like I said, the blood supply is going to fight or flight mode, and your stomach's not as important now, so it's not getting as much blood as it needs to keep things doing. And the other thing was, I mean, like, failure was what is at the root of my PTSD, this fear of failure, this obsessive failure thought that just fires in my head. So before marijuana, just the fact I suffered from PTSD made me feel like a failure. That alone, right? Because other people were there and experienced what I experienced, and some of them were like not affected in the way I was by it. And so that felt like a failure to me. And so that's not a thing anymore. That doesn't, having PTSD isn't a failure. surviving it is actually a pretty decent form of success, I think. And so, this was a hard episode to talk about, but I'm glad I did. So now I just sort of endure that bit of PTSD that happens, that feeling, the physical feeling. I observe my physical feelings. Yeah, my hands feel weird, my feet feel weird, my stomach's weird. This is uncomfortable. I observe my emotions and just ride it out and know it will pass. And by golly, a Gummy and the cartoon channel is a pretty good way to relax. And if that's all you can do for a bit, is just sit there on the couch and have a gummy and watch cartoons, well, that's okay. The PTSD is not going to last forever. You will come out of it eventually. And life will return to somewhat normal. And you find too that once you accept that, things get bigger and bigger before they knock you back to that place, that bad place that you were at. And little things tend not to do it so much anymore. So it does, if you stick with it, get better. As long as you look after yourself. And so, yeah, when it happens, I don't hide it now. When I have PTSD problems, I don't hide it. I'll let my boyfriend know that I'm going to be a little out of it for a while. I'm going to be having to slow down for a while. And so that's what I do. And I don't feel like slowing down for a while is a failure. It's self-care, right? And it's what you need to do to get through this, right? So yeah, I'm as of the making of this video, I am coming off a very rough 2 weeks of dealing with PTSD. But I am now at that other side. And I thought since the genesis of this show was I had a lot of breakthroughs in my treatment of my mental health by using marijuana. And it helping me get that voice in my head that got me through a really bad stretch of PTSD that was lasting months. Without break, without end. And it was so dark, it did not seem like it was ever going to go away. And it got me through that, and it got me to look at my trauma objectively. And it's got me to accept that this is going to happen from time to time in my life. And when it does happen, I'll just have to, just observe what your body's going through. Just observe what your mental state is going through. Keep an eye on it. Take it easy. If you need to spend, some time on the couch watching cartoons while having a gummy, that's fine. Want to spend some time in your room just goofing around, that's fine. You're not going to be at your most productive, but that's okay, right? You're undergoing maintenance now. So that you can be productive later when this isn't a problem. So, yeah, I finally got it out. I finally was able to tell you about how marijuana helped my PTSD. And let me tell you this too. Now, I'm not anti-alcohol, all right? I know some people that use marijuana are like, oh, alcohol's evil and marijuana is, marijuana comes from God and alcohol comes from the devil and stuff like this. I don't see it that black and white. Alcohol has its place. And for me now, I have come to learn alcohol does not have a place to medicate my PTSD. Alcohol, for me, I have realized I'm in a good place drug. I'm out fishing with my dad and my brother, or I'm out with my boyfriend and our dogs, or I'm jamming with my friends, or I'm coming down after a show. Alcohol is a good place drug, and it's fine there. Alcohol, for me, turns into poison if I'm in PTSD. And I'm pretty sure it does for a lot of people too. Alcohol, I find, takes that self-hate dial and just cranks it like crazy. So, when I do have an event that happens that's very traumatic in my life, I don't drink it away. I don't try to drink that feeling away, which just leads to things that make you feel more of a failure, right? I will have a gummy, I'll tell you that, because the gummy never told me to kill myself. And that's pretty swell. So this has been a hard episode for me to get to. I've been talking an hour. I'm just going to show you the RD6 that I bought, because it's so cheap and it would make me feel so fun. And I bought this before I had my PTSD episode these past 2 weeks. I bought it and I was going to show it. So this was something I had planned before. I didn't do it because, like I said, I've learned now that when I'm going through the PTSD, it's okay to slow down and not be very productive for a bit until you get over it. And if that length of time is days or weeks or maybe even a month or two, it's what the time it's going to be. And just ride it out and trust in yourself that you can make it through this, and trust in your family to support you, trust in your friends to be there for you. It's much better than alcohol for treating PTSD, so I gave it a thumbs up for that. But once again, this is not a medical advice channel, so run that past your therapist. Don't do it because a guy on the internet said, oh yeah, no, use some marijuana, that'll fix it up. So anyways, let's get to, I want to show you the RD6 that I bought. And if you, from the other story, you'll remember that the RD6 was the one I wanted to buy, and the or not the RD6, the TR606, the Roland one that it's based on, was the one I wanted to buy. And the TB303 was the one I had no interest in when I saw that pile of them. And I never bought the RD6 because I knew it wasn't a good drum machine, right? I just wanted to sample its sounds to build a sample library out of. But now, after all these years, I have got myself a TD6, which is Behringer's clone of the TR606. I feel vindicated now. It's like that one mistake I have corrected. And yeah, it would have been nice if I had bought the whole pile and then sold them in like the late 90s when I think that was when the price peaked. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. It might be some other time that the price peaked, but I think it was the late 90s was when the TB303 was at its most expensive, and that made other companies start making clones and original synths that were sort of inspired by it and stuff like that. So, oh man, I'm babbling, but it's been a pretty. That was a hard babble. This one, I tell you, when I started this show, I was always afraid that I might overshare, right, and something in a moment of vulnerability, but you know, if you're out there and you're hurting in a way that me telling you about how I hurt can help you, then that's fine by me. That's all I ask for. Yeah, so let's get to the table here and start doing the synth stuff. Okay, here we are. We're at the table now, doing the recreational part of the gummy, which is, you know, equally as valid. I did this to demystify marijuana as a treatment, as a drug to treat mental health disorders, and I'm also doing it to demystify marijuana as a recreational drug. So you're seeing me very stoned, attempting to do something I can do sober very easily and very well, and attempting to do it while stoned when none of the connections in my body seem to be working right. Just pressing the buttons is odd. My timing is off, my hearing is off, everything is off, but I'm still having fun, and I'm doing it. So what did I get? I got this. I got this little purple beastie here. It's an RD6 analog drum machine, which, as I said, is a copy of Roland's TR606 analog drum machine. Is it an amazing sounding drum machine? No, it is not. It is the 606, right? It's very anemic. Doesn't even have the charm of Bontempi organ built-in rhythm analog drum machine. And I have other analog drum machines too. Like I got this one here. This is the Korg Volca drums or Volca beats, and then I've got the Akai whatchamadoodle Rhythm Wolf, which is an analog drum machine and a little cheesy little analog bass thing. They all have their own unique qualities, right? So I don't need a machine that sounds like an 808, which is the gold standard of analog drum machines. This doesn't sound like an 808 at all. This doesn't sound like an 808 OL. This thing here does not even come close to sounding like an 808. Like I said, it's got a very thin, anemic sound to it. Like, there we go. Shut that off, shut that off. So as you can see, it doesn't have a lot of controls on it. It looks like it's, oh wow, all these knobs and stuff like this. You must be able to sculpt the bass drum and stuff. No, it is what it is, right? It's only these sounds. All these knobs, though, control a really neat function. They're independent volumes because this machine has independent outputs for its different drum sounds, which is awesome to have in a drum machine. In a perfect world, there would not be a drum machine that didn't have that. But what that means is you can use effects on separate, instead of all the drums getting the same effect, you can set them out to different things. So the snare is getting this effect, and the bass drum's getting this effect, and that, and you can really sculpt a lot of interesting percussion out of any drum machine that has multiple outputs. And honestly, I find if I'm working with effects, a lot of things that are really effects heavy, a thin dry source lets you really play with the effect space a lot more than if you're feeding a very lush or fat sound into it. You don't get the same dynamic range that you would if you what the hell was I talking about? I lost track of my thought there. That's where this machine is really great. And that's where I'm really looking forward to playing with it. Tonight I'm not doing that. I'm not sending things because this is the Gummy Voice Show. So I've taken a gummy, and that's a little beyond the gummy brain right now to be doing all that. I find that while the gummy is in effect, my technical skills, which I have acquired over a lifetime of hard work, become a little dull. It takes a lot longer to do something. Just hooking a cable from here to where the hell is this going? How does this work again? It takes a lot longer when the gummy comes in, right? Which is why, now some people don't get that effect apparently, and but for me, I get it really bad. Like I notice it a lot, right? But for some people, they don't get that effect much at all from it. But for me, I could never work professionally while taking a gummy. So the gummy is just a sort of, when my working day is through, then I can pick a time to relax with the gummy. And I usually like to relax with the gummy right before bed, so that it's kind of kicking in and I'm kind of going to sleep with the gummy effect still fully on. It'll come to a point where I start to get tired, and then I go to bed. But doing work on a gummy, never could do it. But this is the Gummy Voice Show, where we don't work and we just have fun. So we're gonna hook this machine. Okay, let me explain how I got everything hooked up. So I got the TD3 hooked into the sync to the Chaos Pro, and I've synced this one to the MIDI on the Chaos Pad. The Chaos Pad is still doing the effects for the TD303 the TD3, the chord pad I have here is running the effects. The output from that goes directly into this thing. This is the Korg Chaos Pad. Chaos Pad Quad, it's called, because this one's the Chaos Pad, actually. This is the Chaos Pad Quad, and it's a different take on the original Chaos Pad, and not as good, I think. It has its uses, and I'm not knocking it, right? Because I tend to look at, trying to not be too judgmental with gear, right? It's every piece of gear has a use. I have this one microphone, which is absolutely garbage. It's a garbage microphone, but man, there are times I need that garbage microphone sound so bad. And this microphone excels at it. I mean, that's why musicians collect microphones, okay? And so if you're not a musician and you're wondering, why does the musician in my life buy all these microphones? Why isn't it just one microphone that you sing into? And it's because, well, I might have one microphone that I sing into, but I'm not always recording myself singing. Sometimes I'm recording other people singing, and I might need a different microphone for them. And then for different instruments, this microphone really brings out the richness of the acoustic instrument, but it doesn't work good when it's on a cabinet amplifying an electric guitar and stuff like this. So every microphone, like we collect them because they all have certain purposes, right? And so if people that have a lot of gear, they'll have a collection of microphones, and that is why. That's not what we were here to talk about, was it? We're here to play with this Behringer TD6. What got me off on that thing? I don't know. I'm having fun now, which I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do, honestly, after telling what the babble was. I didn't think I would be energized afterwards and be even able to sit at this table and do this, but actually I am feeling pretty good. So this program's just like any other drum machine. I mean, it's bog standard sort of programming. Anyone can figure out how to program this thing. This thing here, you gotta really want to know how to program it kind of thing. And honestly, if I was using it, like I said before, if I was using it in some sort of production, I wouldn't be programming. I'd be programming it on the computer and then sending it through MIDI to this. And same as the drum machine, I never program drum machines on the drum machine and use that in a production. I always have it recorded. I record it MIDI on the computer and then send the MIDI data to the drum machine to do that. And so, oh, what the hell was I talking about? Jeez, this is a really strong gummy tonight, folks. So yeah, we're doing this. Anyone can learn to program this. So. I actually had someone tell me that they bought themselves a TD3 after seeing how much fun I had with it in the last one. And if you did that to have fun, well then you'll have fun with this one too. So this is an analog drum machine. The sounds are kind of meh, but like the TD3, Behringer has built that randomize function into it, and that random function, I as jamming musicians freaking love stuff like that, right? And like I said, there's a difference between jamming and songwriting, and both are equally as valid, and both are equally as fun, and some people find one form of music more fun than the other, and they focus more on that than the other. But they're both, to me, just as fun. And jamming to randomness is so wonderful. Randomness is like a blessing from the universe, right? You're being visited by something that wouldn't be there otherwise. Although sometimes, I guess, like what we were talking about in the Babel, randomness, sometimes just shit happens because of random reasons. And then it's not. But in music, randomness is something where you're almost always going to get something fun. So I thought, what would be fun today, rather than me programming the RDs, oh man, it'd be so much easier if the names were TR606 and TB303, but obviously, for obvious reasons, they aren't. The RD6, I'm going to hit a random pattern, and we're just going to see what we can build based on that one random drum pattern, and we'll turn that into a song. So, what are we going to do? Oh yeah, we're going to hit, well, this is the pattern that's in it now. Oh yeah, I forgot. I use this is one thing I don't like about this instrument, is it's either or with the start stop. So that's the start button. I think this might be a little too loud. Let me put it down. Hard to tell because, like I said, my hearing gets very affected by the gummies. So this starts and stops it with this foot switch, which is really, really handy if you're a live performer, because then it's like having a third hand, right? So you can be playing two other things and then stomp this to bring it in, and it's a momentary contact switch. So press once for on and another time for off. So it's not like just you have to keep pressure on it to have it play. Now, so yeah, I wish it didn't override this, because sometimes I like to just start it there, and then other times when I'm doing other stuff, I like to start it here. But yeah, that's what the foot switch does. Oh man, this gummy's really wiped me out. See, this is why you don't drive. Don't drive with the gummies, because you are not at peak performance on the gummies. As wonderful as being at diminished performance on the gummies is, you're not at peak performance. So don't do dangerous things with the gummies. As you can see, it is clearly affecting my abilities, and I am under no illusion that I am operating as normal right now. So yeah, this is the pattern that was in it. And we're going to replace that with a random pattern that we are going to generate right now by pressing the start, stop, and clear button at the same time. Awesome feature. I wish every sequencer out there had some sort of feature like that gives you some randomness to it. All right. That should do it. Let's hear what we got, gang. Oh, yeah. All right. That's something I think I can work with. Do we dare try to go double random and pull up a random TD3 pattern to go with it. And let's see, does this start, because that's one of the problems with random patterns put into these things is the loop point. The first beat isn't necessarily going to be the first beat on the sequencer, right? So it makes it, doing this sort of random programming makes it really difficult to synchronize your stops and starts on things. So that's why I had the last episode, there was a couple times I missed the start point or something, and so getting these two so that they both have a random pattern that just so happens to start on the same beat would be pretty amazing. But let's see what we get. Okay, so what's this? Yeah, see, that's not even in 4/4. That's 3/4, and then yeah, it's like a 5 and and then another 3, right? Oh man, math is so hard on a gummy, man. I have dyscalculia. I have trouble with. I understand abstract mathematics, which was why I was able to program computers and stuff like that. But doing simple math, 5 + 3 and stuff like that gets very. That's where I always make the mistakes. I never make the mistakes in the rest of the logic part of the math equation. I make the stupid 5 + 3 = 9 or something like that mistake. That's how this dyscalculia affects me, and other people. It affects them in different ways. They can't see the numbers and stuff like that. So yeah, we were trying to count that out, right? All right, let's hit random pattern. I want to put it on the second one because I have a pattern here that I kind of like. So I want to save that there, and then if I want to work on it later. And we'll do this one though. All right, this is random now. I like that. You notice how the effects turn that very dry, simple drum machine, right? Like this is like such a dry. This is why I knew I'd have so much fun with this thing. It's so dry and thin that it gives you so much room to do stuff with effects to pull all this wildness out of it. I have another drum machine that is good for that, and it's a digital one. So if I want more digital sounds, I have a Yamaha RX21, I think it is. It's sitting around here somewhere. I don't use it much, but sometimes I'll find I can get one percussion sound out of it that sounds so amazing with some really spacey effects added to it. And that's what I knew this thing would be the same, right? I knew that it's stock analog drum sounds. I'm probably going to go with the Volca. I really like the sound of the Volca beats. I know some people don't like it. I do. I think it's great. You can do some great stuff with it. Or the Akai Rhythm Wolf for analog drum machines. And but for this effects playing, this thing is really, really, really fun. So I like how that turned that very simple beat into something that almost sounds sort of, congas, right? Hand percussion. Hand percussion is the word I'm looking for, right? It's got a very hand percussion-y sound. that was worth the price of admission. I really haven't played with this much at all, and I'm already having a lot of fun with it. Geez, that was good. I wish I had recorded that one. I should have recorded that one properly. Oh well, we're still in the experimenting stage, but yeah, definitely that that sound. So what have I done here? What have I done here, folks, for those playing along at home? I got filter number 6 happening on the Chaos pad, which goes to this. I don't know that I'm going to use it. I don't know that the random pattern in this complemented that, and it's too much of a pain in the arse to try to program that thing sober, let alone on a gummy. Forget that. So I guess this isn't doing much other than controlling. Yeah. Oh well. We'll see what we go with it. This is got a tape echo on it and a pitch shifter. And the way this weird looking thing works is it's got 4 different banks of effects. Bank 1 is a looper and sort of looping stuff and a grain shifter. Bank 2 is distortion. I can't see what else it has on it. Ducking compression, that's handy. Decimator, that's cool. And a flanger and a phaser. Bank number 3 is a bunch of filters and a pitch shifter, which is what I'm using. I'm using the pitch shifter. And then bank number 4 has tape echo on it. And the way you do the effects on this is you select what effect you want. Like, let's say I want to add a decimator to, or a phaser. I think a phaser might work with it, right? So you add that, and then you move your fingers around on the pad, and it changes. Usually dry is at the bottom, wet is at the top, and then different modulations going side to side. So your y-axis is the level of effect, and your x-axis is modulation. Yeah, you move your finger to where you, and then when you get it to a spot you like, you hit freeze, and it'll hold that effect there. And then you go to the next effect and you do the same thing with it, and when you get it where you like, you hit freeze. And then you go to ever, and if you have an effect that you want to play dynamically while the other effects are doing their thing, you just don't have to freeze it, right? And you just move your finger around. So here's with that pattern. Now we'll add some phaser. No, I don't like the phaser. So I was adding the decimator effect to the RD6 in real time by just not hitting freeze. If I usually things with tape echo, you don't or like the echoes and stuff and the reverbs. Sometimes you want to play them dynamically. Usually those are a set it and forget it. Filters you usually want to play dynamically. Flanger and phaser, they tend to be something you set and forget. You don't really play around with them much. But the decimator is a good one to play around with. All right, so we got that. On the K-Oscillator Pro, right now we're working with rhythm number 169, pattern number 169. So if you have one of these and you want to try making this pattern, that's how you do it. And this thing is so, like, this is I swear to God, if I just had this, and this. Okay, make it even simpler. If I just had this, and this in the 90s, I'd be set. I would, my every night of the week I would have a rave somewhere that I could play if I just had that, and I was back in the 90s. I'd have to be sober to do it, and then the rave would kind of probably suck. But that's that's all I would need in the 90s to make music, is those three. What the hell am I talking about, guys? Okay, let's do this. Oh yeah, we're going to record that, yeah. So I actually like that decimator effect on there, played dynamically. I thought it worked good with that. And I think what we're going to do for this is, I think what I will do is I will just record that percussion like that. I'll do a nice recording of that, and then we'll see. Maybe I'll add other layers to it, or maybe I won't. I don't know. It's getting late and I'm getting sleepy. But I think I'll just record that little percussion thing, and maybe we can come back to it another day and put more tracks on. If I don't have to get through it all in one sitting. This is something I'm doing for fun, right? That's what this show is about. So, let me see if I can get this set up. Ugh. I'll probably edit this out. Probably not, though, because I'm lazy. All right. Menu. Song. Create. Okay. I'm not trying to type in a song title with the data wheel. Not optimal. So I think this one is called Yong 16 because I just changed the first letter. Home. In and out. Nope, that's not what I want. I want to input a sign, not the microphone. I want line, and for the other one, I want line as well. Mode stereo. Exit. And assign the inputs. Everything's looking good there. All right, here we go. So, fingers crossed, this records. I know there's been some Gummy Voice shows where it hasn't recorded, but that's fine because it's the Gummy Voice Show and we don't have to be at our best for it. We just have to have fun. Oh, that's way too hot. But why is it? Huh. What am I doing wrong? Why am I not getting a meter happening here? My meter's not showing up. Why the hell's my meter not showing up? Alright, what's going on? Well, when in doubt, where the hell's he on off? Oh, there it is. Turn it off, turn it on. Oh, that's why. I didn't have the master level up. I just had an idea for something that might be fun. This I will edit. There we go. I've hooked the K-oscillator into the Chaos pad so that I can dynamically control its effects while controlling the effects on the RD6 dynamically with the Chaos pad quad. Yeah, I'm going to have to start that one first because the first beat on that pattern doesn't start, I think, on the first beat of the thing. I'm not sure. So it's too hard, at least with a gummy going on, to sync them up. I got this thing working now. So I say we go for it. We gotta bring the volume up just a smidge. I think that should be good. All right. Yeah, spaced out. I'm going to edit this one, I think. I'm going to try to edit it a little more concisely, because these long zone out pauses are probably not going to be fun for anybody to watch. But boy, this gummy is kicking my ass, and I need that right now, because like I said, sometimes the stuff I'll talk about on this show will be very difficult, and I really need this reward that I give myself for doing that, to make doing the thing I don't like doing, which is the battle at the beginning that's very awkward and uncomfortable for me, much easier to do. If I know that this is waiting for me at the end, I can get through something bad. And that's kind of what music has been for me, is when there's something bad, you know, I can throw myself into music, and it's an escape, and you know, a way to relax and to bring yourself down, and to express your emotions too, and all sorts of stuff. So even if you don't work as a musician, and you don't study you haven't studied music, and you feel you are not good at making music, you can go ahead and make it for yourself, and that's perfectly fine. And yeah, this is a really super simple setup to have instant fun. Like, I mean, that took no work at all. And once again, to remind, everything that's on the Gummy Voice Show is in the public domain, so you can go ahead and use any of this. If there's a little bit of it that's useful that you can sample and make into something else, I don't care, man. This is my gift to the world. It's not much of a gift, but you know, what are you going to do? Oh yeah, we gotta hit play and record over here, right? Good thing I didn't start. I've done that before in the Gummy Voice Show. So let's arm a track. Wait for this to finally fade out. Play and record. That one, I made a mistake. That was a bad start. That I go back. That's the beauty of music, is in music you can always go back and fix a mistake. Unless it's a live performance, I guess. And then you just, you know, do the jazz man trick and repeat it a few times and then work off it. Yeah, that's like that's what happens sometimes. You make a bad note, but it sounds kind of sort of funky in there, right? And then you sort of work it into a riff, and nobody even knows you made a bad note. All right, so but that time the rhythm was off. I didn't like I said, the gummies do affect my sense of rhythm a lot, so I'm not performing too good. Man, that had a long fade out on it. And that was so much fun with so little effort. And that's a good thing to do. You know, it's good to have fun, and low effort art is good for you, right? If you're an artist and you're suffering through burnout, I have to take these. These are the old man glasses that are for reading things. If you're an artist and you're having burnout and you're just not able to, you know, deliver your best work, then don't, man. Just deliver something shitty, man. Deliver something shitty, and you don't even have to show it to anyone. Yeah, so this has been fun. It has been rewarding. This was a very difficult Gummy Voice Show for me to get through, but I got through it, and I actually feel I have expelled some poison as well, which is pretty okay. So, yeah. So, I don't think I'm going to put anything more on that track, because the percussion itself was so much fun, and that then leaves a lot of room for, you know, other people to put their stuff on top of it, and who knows what somebody else might be able to build. A little sample here and there, little loop, whatever, right? So, yeah, that's it. We're done this Gummy Voice Show.